Hey guys, it's Alan from RajabRacing again. We're in January 2026. Today's topic, Toyota 2JZ. So we've made these a couple of years ago now. These are intake plenums to suit the Toyota 2JZ, GE and GTE. They're a full cast aluminium intake manifold with our reputable design internally that we've used across the board since we've been making intake manifolds. They're designed to fit onto the factory lower runner, so there's no need to remove the whole intake manifold. You can retain the factory lower runner. These bolt directly on there. You can use your factory rail on the turbo model. On the non-turbo models, the turbo models, you'll have to use an aftermarket fuel rail. In relation to what the topic today is we've done some testing, some back-to-back testing. So we've had these in the field for quite a while. We've had cars that have raced with these units on there. However, we had a car that was on the dyno. We'll put a video up in this. There'll be a video link to this, or there'll be a video in this video of the car on the dyno. So the car in question had this intake manifold on it with an 85mm throttle body. I think these intakes usually run a 90 or 100mm, I'm not sure, but he had some problems with his throttle body, so we went to a really trusted brand, which is the Plasma Man. We've got a Plasma Man 85mm throttle. We've had this on the dyno numerous times, producing some really good results. We thought they were good results. This was a few years ago. However, leading up to making our intake manifolds, we were able to recently have a back-to-back test, this intake manifold versus our intake manifold. And let me tell you, the results are pretty impressive. As with all the Rajab intake manifolds, our systems are designed for functionality. We're not worried crazily about the way they look. We are ultra concerned about the way they work, and that's everything within everything that we actually do. So with these intake manifolds, they serve a genuine purpose. These intake manifolds, like I said, they're cast aluminium. They're CNC machined. You've got 5 provisions in the back for your map sensor, fuel pressure regulator, boost control, whatever it may be, boost gauge. These are machined to suit a 72mm Plasma Man throttle body. We've also got adapters for these, so you can bolt a 74mm Bosch drive-by wire onto these as well as a direct fitment. You've just got to notify us prior to purchasing, and we make sure we have it installed and sent out to you with it on it. Let's move across to some dyno results now. Okay, now we're over to the trusty mainline dyno. Why do we use these systems? Because they are bloody accurate. They are extremely accurate and extremely repeatable. Don't ask me, ask anyone around the world that's got one that knows how to use it correctly. Anyway, so this car on the dyno, we've got these figures set out in horsepower here. I'm going to start at 3,700, nearly 3,000, I'll call it 3,800. The numbers were very similar on horsepower, torque, and boost. So at this point right there, it's making 118 horsepower to 100 on the old intake manifold. It's making 121 horsepower on our intake manifold. Very close. 223 newton meters of torque with the old intake manifold, 227 with ours. Cool. 2.6 pounds of boost with the old intake, 2.6, nearly 2.7 with ours. Call it 2.6, whatever. Let's come across at 5,000 RPM. Let's see what happens at 5,000. So 5,000 RPM, it went from making 166 horsepower to 228 horsepower. It went from making 236 newton meters of torque to 323 newton meters of torque. It went from making 4 pounds, 4.5, just under 4.5 pounds of boost to making almost 8 pounds of boost. All right, let's come across to 6,000. 6,000 RPM. This is awesome, and yeah, this stuff makes me very happy seeing these sort of results out of something we actually manufacture here in Australia, ourselves personally. Went from 311 horsepower to 629 horsepower. It went from 366 newton meters of torque to 740 newton meters of torque. It went from 12 PSI to 24 PSI at the same RPM both intake manifolds were tested on. All right, let's come across 7,000 RPM. Don't want to bore everyone, but it is what it is. So, 6,972 RPM, this car here. The rev limiter was set to 7,200. It runs a Motec M150 with the GPR drag package. We've got a lot of control over it, so let's be clear about that. So at 7,000 RPM, it makes, with the old intake manifold, 640 horsepower. With our intake manifolds, it makes 818 horsepower. With the old intake manifold, it makes 654 newton meters of torque. With our intake manifolds, it makes 836 newton meters of torque. With the old intake manifold, it makes 22 PSI. With our intake manifold, it makes 26 PSI. Now, I know what you're saying. Yeah, you can rev it harder and make more power. Well, not particularly on this particular job, and we've seen them in the past. They don't always do that based on the engine build, so let's be clear about it. So our intake manifold was done and dusted at 7,200 RPM, or just under 7,200 RPM. The old intake manifold, however, went out to, what did it go to, 7,500 RPM, and it made 728 horsepower. And at peak torque, let's go back to the torque peak, at 698 newton meters of torque. And I know what you're saying, oh, but it makes less boost with the old intake manifold. I get it, I understand, but that's not my fault. Like I said to you at the start of the conversation, we had nothing manipulating boost, period. I can't help it, it's not a bad thing. If our intakes make more boost, that's a bonus for the end user. So we'll come back across to the intakes and let's have a bit more of a squeeze. Okay, we're back over to the intake manifolds. So this is your bright, shiny intake, hand fabricated intake manifold. Yeah, they look okay. This is our intake manifold. One that sort of works and one that really works. That's the difference between these two units. Have a great day. It's Alan. Look after yourself.